We're going to be discussing circles, and just like on some of the assignments, I have the little lecture videos here. So if you want to make 100 on them, you got to make sure that you click on them. You don't got to watch them, but click to get the green checks. I'm still noticing some of you that have grades less than 100, when you got every problem right, and I look and it's things right here, you didn't click on those. Okay? So let's get started discussing circles today. I don't think I'm going to write out a formal definition for circle. I think most people are familiar with the word. But if you want a formal definition, circle would be a set of all points that are equidistant from a given point called the center. I remember years ago seeing a textbook that defines circle as a set of points equidistant from a given point. And I laughed at that definition, because by that definition, if you had a number line, 1 and 3 are equidistant from 2, but the points 1 and 3 on the number line are not a circle. It's got to be all the points that are equidistant from a given point. So we're going to have equations of circles, and then we're going to be graphing circles. Maybe y'all recall at some point in your life using a compass, not a north, south, east, west compass, but a compass for drawing circles. We're going to have sort of a digital version of that. So on a circle, pretend this is a circle. Oh, I should have brought a compass in. Oh, that's a horrible looking circle. Pretend it is. Yeah, something like that. On a circle, you have two things. If you have one of those compasses with the sharp point for drawing circles, you put the sharp point down, you move the pencil over and spin it. I'm assuming y'all are familiar with that. Where you put the sharp point down, that's called the center of the circle. And that center would be an ordered pair x, y, but we're going to call it the center HK instead of XY. And then however far over you move your pencil, that's the radius. And I'm going to abbreviate the radius of a circle with the letter R. So the center of the circle, we're calling the ordered pair HK. And the radius is the distance from the center to the outer edge. That radius I'm going to abbreviate with the letter R. The equation of a circle, when you have the center and the radius, the equation can be written like this, parentheses, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. You know what? I just realized, is it doing that focusing stuff? Oh, let me correct that. There. Okay, should stop now. Plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So if you know the center and the radius of a circle, then you can graph it. That's what you got to do. No matter how you're going to graph, if you're going to graph a circle, you've got to know that center. If you have an old-fashioned compass with a sharp end and a pencil, you've got to know, where do I put that sharp point, and how far out do I move the pencil? That's the center and the radius. So a couple of special cases. If the circle is centered at the origin 0, 0, then what does the equation look like? Well, if you plug a 0 in for h and a 0 for k. Put a 0 here and a 0 here. You're not going to have any of those parentheses. The x minus 0 we could just write as x. The y minus 0 we'll just write as y equals r squared, the radius squared. So all I did was plug 0 in for h, 0 for k. So if the radius is the origin, 0, 0, then we don't have any parentheses. The first thing we're going to be doing in this assignment, problem number 1, oh gosh, let me try to make that a little bigger. It's going to be a lot of this zooming and unzooming, unfortunately, because to use the graphing tool for circles in a moment, I can't have it zoomed too much, okay? Or else it's going to be cutting off stuff. So, problem number 1, first thing says find the center radius form of the equation of the circle with center 0, 0. So there's the HK part, and the radius is 14. So problem number 1, let me write it down. The center is 0, 0. Oh, my pretty blue pen is dead. And the radius is, what is that, 14? Okay. So let's write the equation of the circle. The center is 0, 0. So we plug a 0 in for h and a 0 for k. There's not going to be any parentheses in this answer here. Why? Well, it's just like right here. It's centered at 0, 0. X minus 0, that would just be x squared. Y minus 0 is y squared. And what number are we going to have on the right-hand side? 14 squared, which is not 28. What is it? 196? Yeah, 14 times 14. So there's the equation. In that center radius form. Notice there's no parentheses there. So let me come over here and type that in. You got to click in the little rectangle, or the square here before it gives you the little tools there. So let's see. X squared, right arrow to get out of that exponent, plus y squared, right arrow, equals, what was it, 196? 14 times 14? I will check that one. And now we're going to graph it. In order to get this thing to show correctly, let me see it there. I'm going to click right here. Now, in order to graph this circle, you're not going to use, sometimes when there's an A-B part, students want to use part A to answer part B or to do part B. No, no, no. You could have graphed that circle right off. In order to graph a circle, all you need to know is where do you put the sharp point and how far over do you move. Don't use this equation. To graph the circle, first we have these little tools, the line tool, the absolute value tool, and on these, every one of them, you're going to be clicking the circle tool. And the yellow rectangle tells you what to do. Click the graph to plot the center of your graph. Okay, this is the equivalent of putting your sharp point down if you had an old-fashioned compass. So I'm at 0, 0. I know I'm at 0, 0. If you have a hard time telling where you are, look in the upper right-hand corner of the yellow rectangle. Once you click there, now as you move around, there's every circle centered at 0, 0. Well, which one circle is ours? Well, move over 14 units. It doesn't matter if you move over left 14, right 14, up 14, or down 14. You're still getting the same circle. I just moved right 14. But if you look, by moving right 14, didn't I also move up 14, left 14, down 14? So you plot the center and then move over whatever the radius is. Exactly what you would do if you had a graph paper and a old-fashioned compass. Put the sharp point down at the origin, move over 14, spin it around. Here you don't have to spin it around. It does that for you. You say save before you can check your answer. Okay? So notice, if the circle is centered at 0, 0, you shouldn't have any parentheses in your answer. Okay? Let's look at problem number 2. Problem 2 says, okay, the center of the circle is, what is that, a -3, 2, and the radius is 3. So the center is -3, 2, the radius is 3. Right here. Well, there's not a lot of scribble to get this equation here. You call this H and K, and you're just going to plug in place of the blue H, I'm going to put a -3. In place of the blue K, I'll put a 2. So on this one, we're going to have some parentheses. In place of the red R, I'll put that red 3. So write in the equation, be careful with these negatives. Black X, black minus. So we have X minus a -3. That -3 is going to make this black minus into a plus. Do y'all see why I'm writing +3 there? So it's X minus a -3, so X plus 3 squared, plus Y minus 2. So that's going to stay just a Y minus 2 in the parentheses. Equals, oh heck, can I do this in my head? The 3 squared, what number am I going to write right there? Just a 9. So X plus 3 squared plus Y minus 2 squared equals 9. Do y'all see how I got that? Especially that plus 3 in the parentheses here. It's X minus a -3. So that's why it's a plus 3. So let me type that in over here. Oh, wow, it's so small. I forgot to zoom back in on this one. So here it is. Now notice, this time you're going to have to type in the parentheses. Parentheses. X plus 3, close parentheses, squared, right arrow, plus parentheses, Y minus 2, close parentheses, exponent squared, right arrow, equals 9. When you're typing in stuff like that, don't hit space keys. It'll sometimes throw out the formatting. You might get something. In general, with my math lab, never type in space keys or capital letters. Lowercase letters, no spaces. Oh, it's not showing because it's too big. I'm going to have to... There. Okay, I still got to go down a little bit more there. Are we ready to try to graph it? To graph it, you're not using this equation. You're going to click the center, move over 3. Okay? So let's say click to enlarge, we're graphing a circle, plot that center. What was it? -3, 2? -3, 2, is that Brian? Yeah. So I click there. I know I'm at the right, I'm at -3, 2 because the upper right hand corner of the yellow rectangle says -3, 2. So I'll click there. And now just move over 3 units, whatever the radius is. You want to move up 3, or you can move right 3, or down 3, or left 3. You're going to get the same circle no matter how you do it. I think I just moved right 3. I'll just stop right there. Click it. Say save it. And then I can check it. Notice, if it's not centered at the origin, you're going to have parentheses here. Okay? So when it's centered at the origin, no parentheses in that center radius form. Okay? Oh, I think I've mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it once again. Do y'all think you could come up with a rule? In algebra, you always do it one way, and then what? Do it in reverse. If you didn't have this, the center and the radius, if those weren't given, but you had the equation, do y'all think you could come up with a rule? How would we go backwards? If you have the equation, look at the equation and look at the center. Look here, I have a +3, but up here it's -3. Here in the equation I have a -2, but up there it's +2. What am I trying to hint at poorly that you would do to go backwards? What would I do to this number here to get that number there? I'd say change the sign. Change the sign of the number in the parentheses with X. Then change the sign of the number in the parentheses with Y. That would get you the center. Now what about the radius? What would I need to do to get this number out of that? Square root. Okay? I'm mentioning that because eventually that's how we're going to be going about it. But let's do another one. Let's do number 3. So problem 3. The center. Oh, let me make it big again. There. The center is 4, -4. And what's that radius? +5. The center is 4, -4. The radius is a 5. And we're going to write that equation. Well, we call the center HK. And, oh, okay, you can still see it. In place of this blue H, I'm going to put a blue 4. In place of the blue K, I'll put a blue -4. And I think I'm going to try using green instead of black for that. So parentheses, X minus H squared plus Y minus, you know what, I'm going to rewrite it all. X minus H squared plus Y minus K squared equals R squared. So now I can lift it up. So there is the equation. Now I'll draw arrows. In place of the blue H, I'll put a 4. In place of the blue K, I'm putting a negative 4, so watch out. In place of the 5, in place of the R, I'll put a 5. So the first set of parentheses, is there going to be a minus or a plus in it? X minus 4. Did y'all hear that? Plus. Okay, here it's going to be a plus. It's Y. Okay. Minus a negative, so plus is right. I agree with that. Squared. Equals, what's the number on the right? 25. Good. Okay. So x minus 4 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 25. In algebra, you always want to write equations. Okay. So, punch that in. Parentheses. X minus 4, close parentheses, squared. Then I was about to put a plus right there, but no. That plus shouldn't be up there in that exponent. So backspace, right arrow, plus parentheses, y plus 4, close parentheses, squared. Don't put the equal sign up there in the exponent. If you do, it's going to count it wrong. If you do that, it's going to count it wrong. So after I punch in the square, I'll go right arrow, down arrow, or move your mouse and click. Just do something to get out of there. Equals 25. So x minus 4 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 25. Okay. So we're going to graph a circle. Plot the center. What was that center again? 4, negative 4. So right 4, down 4. Is that 4, negative 4? Is that where I am? Yeah, look in the yellow rectangle, upper right there. I plot the center, and what was the radius of 5? Well, start at the center and move over 5 units. Move left, right, up or down, however you want to do it. I think I'll move up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Let me count. Let me look closely. Did I move up 5? I'm thinking I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Right there. And notice by moving up 5, I also moved right 5 and down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Left 5 also. And I will check it. Any questions there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are all the same type of problem. Let's jump to number 5. Problem 5. Okay. So problem 5 says, find the center radius form of the equation. Here the center is 0, 1. Center is 0, 1. The radius is 6. So the center is 0, 1. And the radius is 6. We're finding that center radius form of the equation. Let me go ahead. I'm going to do what I did over here. I like write the equation and then draw the arrows. I'm going to do that again. So it'd be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. H, K, R. One of these will not have a parenthesis when we write the answer. Which one, the x or the y? The x will not have a parenthesis. The x minus 0, that would just be x. So we don't need to write x minus 0 in parentheses. Then here's my plus. Now here we're going to have some parentheses. Y, am I going to write minus 1 or plus 1 here? Yeah. The green minus and then a blue 1 equals r squared. What number are we putting here? 36. So x squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 36 is our equation there. Click to type it in. X squared, right arrow, plus parentheses, y minus 1, close parentheses, squared, right arrow, equals 36. Mother's 92. I'm reminded of a time, maybe she was 85, maybe it was 10 years ago, where she went to switch doctors. She went off to see her new doctor. I asked her later, did you like your new doctor? She said, oh, I hated it. I walked in there and they just sat there. I mean, they just punched on a computer and stuff. You know, and I was like, oh, Mama, you know, things have changed. Yeah, you know, I'm here punching on a computer. Back when I started, I didn't have a computer in the classroom. But things have changed. But she did not like the fact that the doctor stood there punching on a computer. And I was like, oh, Mama, you know, when I come in here, what do I always start doing? Punching on a computer before I start talking or anything. So let's see. Can we graph this one without too much trouble? See, this is what's nice about these videos. It shows that. If you look at the old videos with the old document camera, it really would just show the stuff that was on the paper there. So I couldn't show you how to do this. So I click 0, 1. Over 0, up 1. And then I move left, right, up, down. How many units?
6.
6. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did I move up 6? I sure did. I started at 1 and moved up to 7. Save and check. Any questions? It's not too difficult to write the equation given the center and the radius. Right? Writing the equation when you're given the center and radius isn't too difficult. If you're going to graph a circle, you don't need this equation. What you need is that center and radius. Mention that because let's look at problem number 6. Problem 6 says graph the circle. Notice it didn't tell us that center and radius. If you're going to graph a circle, you absolutely positively must know the center and radius. So that's what I was trying to get at earlier when I was asking you on this one. How would you go backwards? Given the equation, how do you come up with this h, k, and r? Well, change the sign, square root. That's how you find it. Let me go ahead and write that out. To find the center and radius. And that's what you've got to know if you're going to graph a circle. You've got to know that center and radius. change the sign of the number in the parentheses with X, then change the sign of the number in the parentheses with Y. That gets you the center. To get the radius, take the square root of the number on the right. So, in abbreviated form, I'll say change the sign, square root. That's how you find the center and radius. Find the center and radius. Change the sign of the number in the parentheses with X. Then change the sign of the number in the parentheses with Y. Take the square root of the number on the right to get the radius. Change the sign, square root. So, let's look at problem number 6 again. Okay, so problem 6. We write it down. We're told graph the circle. No, okay. X minus 6 squared plus Y plus 8 squared equals 4. Says graph it, so we've got to know that center and radius. I should have already done this. Let me zoom a little and there. Okay. Well, if we're going to graph it, the center and radius of what we have to know. What is that center? 6, negative 8. Change the sign. I'm going to write CS for change sign. That's what I did there. Change the sign of the number in the parentheses with X. Then change the sign of the number in the parentheses with Y. Now the radius is 2, the square root of the number on the right. So, change the sign, square root. There we have everything we need in order to graph it. If you were graphing it by hand with an old-fashioned compass and graph paper, you'd put the sharp point at 6, negative 8. Then you'd move over 2 spots, put your pencil, and spin it around. Well, we're not using an old-fashioned compass. We are instead... Let me make it small enough so that I click to enlarge. Okay, click circle. Click, what was that center? Right 6, down 8. Ooh, 6, negative 8. Am I at 6, negative 8? I think so, right? How do I know I am? Well, that yellow rectangle. Upper right hand corner, it's hard to see that, but it says 6, negative 8. And now I'll move over 2, move up, down, left or right, 2. I think I'll move down 2. 1, 2. I'll get to a nice circle. Save it. And check it. So it's not too difficult to figure out that center and radius if it's written with those parentheses, right? Let's see. Let me blow this one up. This one's just like the one we finished doing. We just did 6 and 7 are both the same thing. Graph the circle. So let me write it down. And then, oops, it's number 7. X plus 2 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 9. X plus 2 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 9. You're told to graph it, which means we need to know that center and radius. Okay? Center and the radius. So I'm just going to, if it looks to you like I'm just writing the problem down and writing out the answer, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Say it again. -2, -4. Change the sign of the number in the parentheses with X. Change the sign of the number in the parentheses with Y. Take the square root of that last number, or the number on the right, however you want to word it. I think I said the number on the right. So the radius is 3. So, come over here. Make it a little smaller so this graph fits correctly on the screen. I'll click circle. And talk me through, help me out. What am I going to click now? Center of the circle. So -2, -4. Is that the center? And now, move up 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Click Save. And check your answer. Okay. So, can I coerce you into agreeing that it's pretty easy to find the center and radius if it's written like this with the parentheses? It's pretty easy. Well, is this the same type of problem? Or is this one, notice, it doesn't have the parentheses. It still says find the center and the radius, well, and then it says graph it. So how the heck do we find the center and radius when it's been expanded? By expanded, I mean written without those parentheses.
That'll be 0, huh?
No, I mean, it'd be 0 if there was nothing else, no other X or Y. Okay? What we're going to do now is discuss how to take an expanded form and rewrite it with those parentheses. This is number 8. So this is just, I'm going to sort of talk my way through and think about it, and then I'm going to review some factoring. Equals, what is that, a 68? Yeah. On number 8, this is where the assignment gets more involved. We know how to find the center and the radius when it's written with the parentheses. How do we rewrite this like that? So that's what we're going to have to do, is rewrite this equation with these parentheses. And there's a pattern for doing that. Before we actually discuss it, I want to review something called, I'm going to review some factoring. I want to review factoring. Let me word it this way. Perfect square trinomials. Been factoring off and on all semester just about. Suppose we have this thing. X squared plus 10x plus 25. Sometimes when you're doing this trial and error, the problems are harder to factor than others, usually depending on whether there's a number in front of the squared term. Am I thinking this is one of the easier ones to factor or one of the harder ones? It's one of the easier. Why? You would just go x and x. Now what about the signs? Y'all remember the little rule for the signs? If the second sign is plus, then but two of the first are both plus. Now there's not a lot of numbers that multiply together to give 25, or 1 times 25, what else? 5 times 5, which one's going to work? 5 and 5. This is called a perfect square trinomial because we got the exact same thing in both sets of parentheses. So it could be written like this, x plus 5 squared. In order to have a perfect square trinomial, this third number here has to be a perfect square. It couldn't be something like a 12. Why? Well, what times what would give you 12? Okay? This last number here has to be a perfect square. Let's try to factor this one. Y squared minus 14y plus 49. Is this a perfect square trinomial? Well, let's see. Y and y. The second sign is plus, so 2 of the first sign. If it's going to be a perfect square trinomial, this second sign must be plus. Why? Well, if the second sign were minus, you'd have a plus and a minus. So you wouldn't be getting the same thing in both sets of parentheses. So this sign here, the second sign, must be plus. 1 times 49 or 7 times 7. What's going to work here? 7 times 7. So this is a perfect square trinomial. We could factor it as y minus 7 squared. Let's see. What about this one? X squared minus 6x plus. Could y'all figure out what perfect square would need to go here in order to get one of those perfect square trinomials? It's got to be a perfect square. What are the perfect squares? 1 times 1. 1. 4, 9, 16. Let's see, I'd put an x and an x. Second sign is plus, so 2 of the first. What number can we square to get a 9 and double to get a 6? What number could we... Oops. I've already said it. I'm sorry. Okay. What number could... it's going to be a 9. Okay? I said too much in my question I was asking you. Okay? 3 times 3 would give me a 9. 3 plus 3 would give me a 6. So x minus 3 squared. I'm wondering if we can figure out a way to decide on this third number. There's an easy pattern to it once you see it. If we had a y squared plus 18x. Suppose we had 18y. It should be y. Sorry about that. Y squared plus 18y. If I were factoring this, I'd put y and y. Second sign is plus, so 2 of the first. It has to be a number that we can double to get an 18. What number would need to go here and here? Okay, it's got to be a perfect square right here. 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. What's after 36? A 49. See, 49, 7 and 7 wouldn't give you the 18. 64, 8 and 8 wouldn't give you an 18. What about 81? 9 and 9, would that give us the 18? 81. And I'm just going to tell y'all how to get this number in the blank. Once I tell you, it'll be sort of obvious. you take half of this number and then square it. Half of 18 is 9. That's what's going to go in the parentheses. 9 squared, 81. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Half of 14 is 7. 7 squared is 49. Half of 10 is 5. 5 squared, 25. Let me write one here and y'all see if you can figure out what number would need to be in the blank to get us a perfect square trinomial. So we have y plus 9 squared. If you're wondering where the heck is all of this coming from in relation to circles, I'll make a connection to it in a moment. Suppose we have x squared minus 12x plus. What number would need to be right here? 36. How did you get 36? You take half of 12 and then square it. Half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. If you're worrying about this negative right here, okay, half of negative 12 is negative 6. But negative 6 squared is still 36. So if I had a 36 there, how would it factor? I'm going to skip straight to just the answer. I would put a x and then a minus 6. See, I don't need to write it out twice. What about one more, just to make sure you get the hang of this number in the blank? If we had y squared minus 20y plus, what would need to be? 100. You take half of this number, half of 20 is 10. 10 squared is 100. So y minus 10 squared. What the heck does that have to do with these circles? Well, looking back at number 8, we need to write it with these parentheses. And we can do that using this perfect square stuff right here. So let me rewrite number 8. We'll do that, and then we'll take our break. Okay, so let me write down number 8 on a clean sheet of paper. Here's number 8. Ooh. It's number 8. X squared plus y squared minus 6x plus 4y equals 68. And we want this thing written with the parentheses. Because remember, how do we find the center and radius if it's written with the parentheses? Well, change the sign, square root. Well, to get started, rewrite the two x terms followed by a plus blank. So you write the x terms with a plus blank. That blank right there is the exact blank that we were using over here. Okay. Then I'll write the y terms. There's a plus y squared, a plus 4y, put a plus blank, equals 68. We're going to put a blue number in the blue blank and a red number in the red blank. If you're going to add a number to the left-hand side of an equation, you've got to also add it to the right to keep it equal. So I'm going to go plus blue blank and plus red blank. Okay. the goal is I'm trying to get it written with these parentheses. Okay? Because once I have it written with the parentheses, change the sign, square root. Well, what number do I need to put right here so I can factor it like this stuff with just the square? A 9, did y'all hear that? You take half of this number and square it. Take half and square it. That's how I'm getting a 9. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Put it on both sides. Do the same thing with the red. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Once again, I'm taking half of that number and then squaring it. That's how I get the number in the blank. Now, factor those blue terms as a perfect square trinomial. It'll be a x plus or minus. Minus, and what number here? 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 plus 3 is 6. Is it starting to look better with the parentheses? Remember, once you have it written with the parentheses, you can change the sign, square root. So how would I write or factor these 3 red terms here? I'll write y. Okay, it's going to be this sign here plus, and then 2. Why am I looking at this sign here? Well, when we're doing it by trial and error, if the second sign is plus, 2 of the first. So this has got to be a plus. If this isn't a plus here, it's not going to be a perfect square trinomial. Equals, what number do we have on the right? 81. Now, it's been a while since we were doing those problems, at least it seems like it, but we can now do what we were doing right here. Change the sign of the number in the parentheses with x, change the sign of the number in the parentheses with y, square root of the last number. That'll get us the center and radius. Change the sign, square root. So the center is positive 3, negative 2, and what's the radius? A 9. So change the sign. That CS stands for change the sign. Change the sign of the number in the parentheses with x, change the sign of the number in the parentheses with y, square root of that number on the right. So, over here, I better make it a little bit smaller. It says find the center and radius and draw the graph. Well, it doesn't ask us to type in the center and radius. That was just giving you the hint. You got to know that center and radius in order to graph the circle. So let me make it 1. Okay. Click circle. And what was that center? Let's see. 3, negative 2. Oh, wow. Is each little mark on this graph a 2? It is, isn't it? So I'm at 3, negative 2. So that's sort of hard to tell there. So I'll click. And now I need to move over 9. Each little mark is 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me see. Did I move over 9? Well, I started at 3 on the x-axis. I move over to 9, so it should be at 12. So it's sort of hard to tell because of the little way that each mark is 2 units. And check it. So observations. In order to graph a circle, you've got to know that center and radius. If the equation is written already with the parentheses, then that's easy. Change the sign, square root. When it's not written with the parentheses, then that's when you're going to have to group the x's together with a plus blank, and that plus blank is where you're going to put the perfect square. The process here where you're taking half and squaring is called completing the square. Completing the square. When you fill in this blank here and here, you're putting a number here that'll give you a perfect square trinomial. Let me see. You know what? Let's do one more and then take our break. For those of you that leave after at the break, you get to see one more problem. Problem 9. Let me write it down. Let me make it bigger so y'all can see it out there. Okay, so here's problem 9. X squared plus y squared minus 2x plus 8y minus 19 equals 0. On this one, notice it doesn't say find the center and radius. All it says is graph the circle. So you got to know, in order to graph that circle, you've got to know that center and radius. So let's start off grouping the x's together. That would be the x squared and the minus 2x. Let's go ahead and put a plus blank there. And group the y's. Y squared plus 8y. Put a blank. Equals 19. Notice I move this constant over to the right hand side. That's where I'm getting the equals 19. I have the 2 x's with a blank, the 2 y terms with a blank, the constant on the right. Now we're going to actually complete the square by filling in those blanks. How do we figure out the number that goes here? You take half of that number and then square it. Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Oh, and I should have put a plus blue blank over here. Because whatever number I add to the left, I got to add to the right if I'm going to keep this thing equal. Now what about the red blank? 16. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared, 16. Again, I'm taking half of that number and squaring it. That's how I'm getting the 16. That's how I got the 1. I'm writing it out there because it might not be immediately obvious if you look back at this later. What the heck? Where did he get that 1? Well, I took half of this number and squared it. Where did I get the 16? Half of this number and squared it. Now, if you wanted to, you could write out your 2 sets of parentheses and factor this blue stuff by trial and error. It'd be x and x. What sign would I use? Okay, so minus, and then 1. X minus 1 times x minus 1 is how you would factor x squared minus 2x plus 1. Y'all caught up? What about the blue ones? What am I going to write here? Excuse me, the red. Y plus 4 squared equals 36. Is it ready to do change the sign, square root? Yeah, the center is positive 1 and negative 4. That's the change the sign. The radius is 6. Perfect. Changing those signs. Change the signs. So now I have enough information to graph the circle over here. Do that. Click to enlarge. I click circle. And what was that center? 1, -4. Oh, good. Each mark is 1 unit. I like that better. Right 1, down 4. That's the center. And then move over 6. Well, I think I'll move up 6. I move up 6. I'm there at 2. Or if you want to move right 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're still getting the same circle. Save it. And check it. Okay. After the break, we're going to do problem number 10. But if you're leaving us at this point, I want to give you a hint on number 10. Look at the other 2 problems. It's just an x squared. Just an x squared. If you're going to take that x minus h squared plus y minus k squared and FOIL it out, you'll wind up with an x squared, not a number in front of x. You wouldn't end up with a 5x squared. What am I trying to say poorly that you need to do on problem number 10 first? You've got to get rid of that 5, divide through by 5. I think on everyone's number 10, there's a number in front of the x squared. First thing you have to do is divide straight through. That's what we'll pick up after the break and do more of these. Okay?